All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Developing a Digital Savvy Public Service panel. My name is Grant Irons. I'm the room host. If there is an emergency, the exits are at the back where you came in. Please remember to silence your cell phones. And at the end of the session, please remember to complete the survey. It's very valuable to us to give feedback on the next summit. So thank you, and panel, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Thank you very much for joining us today. So I'm Tricia Davis-Muffet, and I lead Global Public Sector Marketing here at AWS. And I am thrilled to be here today with this panel. And I'm going to let my lovely co-panelists here introduce themselves. But just for 1 second before we get started, I want to share, this is hosted by the AWS Institute. And so the AWS Institute is a group that we have built inside AWS that really is focused on helping leaders in organizations identify how they can get to where they want to be using technology. So not necessarily focused on all the technical aspects of that transformation, but really more focused on transforming organizations and using technology to get there. So that's sort of what is behind this panel and some of the work that we've done here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But Mark, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Mark Schwartz. I am what they call an enterprise strategist at AWS, which means I'm part of a small team of ex-CIOs or CTOs or senior IT leaders of large enterprises that made the journey to the cloud, did a digital transformation, and we spend our time trying to help large enterprise customers get out of their own way, essentially. Overcome the impediments to transforming, which are usually things like cultural change or organizational structure or financing models or things like that. So before I joined AWS, I was the CIO at US Citizenship and Immigration Services in the Department of Homeland Security. And before that, CIO of a company in San Francisco and CEO of a software company.
And Mark, you just wrote a book, right?
And I just published my third book. It is called War and Peace and IT. It has a subtitle too, but it's really long. Which obviously, as you can tell from the title, it's a sequel to Tolstoy's famous novel.
The big, thick one?
Yeah, it turns out that he ran out of pages before he got around to talking about digital transformation. So I'm just filling the gap.
Nice of you.
Yeah.
All right, Anita?
Yeah, sure. Can you guys hear me? So what do I do? So our department, part of the federal government of Canada, our department is the department that is really focused on helping companies grow. And we help to get small entrepreneurs and businesses, push them through scaling up and becoming large giants across the globe, exporting, help to regulate a little bit of the market, really trying to invest in innovation. We've gotten some really big bets placed on focus on some really key problems in Canada, whether it's cleaning up our oceans or growing food through leveraging technology differently, focusing on digital tech. So we've got these programs like superclusters and others that you read about in the paper. Canada hit the map, I think, a few times on our innovation programs. The other part of the job that I personally have, working with our CIO, who's right here in the front, cheering me on, I think, hopefully, is to really figure out how our department actually can serve business better by actually innovating as a government and really improving our services to Canadians by bringing in digital services and leveraging tech and cloud and better design and better ways to go mobile and web and IoT and whatever else we plan to do in the future.
Great. So in terms of what we want to talk about today, I hope that many of you were there for Andy's keynote earlier today, or Andy's fireside chat, our CEO. If you were, you heard him talk about how education is one of the things that he feels most strongly about as a key enabler. And we really see that also in our work. We've seen it over and over again. not just the education sort of infrastructure or industry, but really the idea of building skills and competencies that will help for the future. And you know, we hear from customers all the time that one of their biggest challenges is finding the right talent and finding the skills that they need to build their economy, to build the new citizen-facing applications they want. And I know that in Canada, you have taken that very seriously also and have seen that really as a national issue. And I know we worked together with the Policy Forum, Public Policy Forum in Canada, and on identifying issues to accelerate digital transformation. And that this was one of the key things that we identified, and that we launched a paper with Wendy Sukaye, exploring how the Government of Canada recruits digital talent to support a digital transformation plan. So Anita, I would love to hear from you about you know, the ambitious plans that the Canadian government has for building digital skills and digital transformation, and you know, where do you see Canada compared to the rest of the world in terms of efforts to hire and upskill public servants?
I think Canada is placing really big bets, and we need to, right? I mean, we're really privileged in Canada. I think we have a huge opportunity to make sure that our people and our society and the quality of life remains high. And we, as a government, have struggled to figure out where we need to really push and invest. So I'm going to answer the question in two ways. I'm going to answer it in terms of from a country point of view, and then also from a inside government point of view. But from a country point of view, every country's got the same problem, right? We're all in that situation where, you know, the workforce of the past is not the workforce of the future. Well, of course not. We're all on the internet. We use our mobile devices. I've got 2. You probably have 3. You've got your tablets. It's an ongoing journey. We socialize online. We trade online. We sell online. We buy online. You know, people are walking down the street looking at their tablets, or not tablets, but their mobile devices. It's actually shocking. If you look around you, I don't even know if we socialize physically anymore, right? Everything is online. So when you think about that, then our job as a government is to, one, make sure that we are safe and secure online. We have the talent to make sure our people know what kind of new jobs and opportunities we have. And we use all these buzzwords, you know, digital skills. What does that mean? Well, it's fundamental stuff from coding, but it's not even about coding as much anymore. It's also about just learning to be safe. So what we're doing as a government is we are, and ISIT is actually playing a key role because it's our job and our duty in the public interest, is to start from, you know, the younger generation. You know, we're talking about elementary school, so we've got programs that focus on making students at the youngest age just be educated and understand what we're talking about when it comes to being safe and socializing online and you know, gaming and everything else, but all the way to high school in terms of teaching teachers to code, teachers to teach how to code differently. So we've got programs, you know, across the entire ecosystem. We invest with nonprofits and educators who are actually in charge, because in our country, the provinces are accountable for that more than the federal government is, but we partner with them, get all these great ideas. So how do you grow that talent pool into the point where you start to say, well, now you are graduated from some aspect, you've been educated, what jobs can you get? And you know, and I really think that because of how we live and across the globe, you know, most of this stuff is about a new workforce. So we're trying to figure out what that is. What does a new workforce look like, right? If we're going to use, you know, robotic automation or driverless vehicles or all these other things that technology is enabling, then what kind of jobs of the future are we going to be investing in or, you know, focusing on? But what we're also going to do as a government is to learn from everyone else. So the technology sector, like Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, IBM, a lot of those partners, but also educators, but then also through research, you know, what does that look like? So we have placed some really big bets and made big investments to get those ideas. So the government of Canada is now more of an open government. Let's get those ideas, so we're not just doing it through long research journeys. We're trying to do it faster. Can we figure it out instead of in 15, 20 years, cut that to 5, 1, 2, get those ideas as quickly as we can, so that we can formulate regulations and policies that really, invest slightly differently. The other thing that we're doing that I'm really excited about is we're putting sandboxes and experiments together. So we're working together with innovation partners that actually, we're in the game now. So autonomous vehicles is a really significant industry for us in Canada. So large tech companies are working with research organizations and post-secondary to try to figure out, what does this mean? Sensors and data, and who regulates what, and who owns what kind of information. And then as a government, we're in there now trying to learn what that means, so we can actually figure out policy differently. So that's a big part of how we're doing it on the outside.
Yeah.
Do you want me to spend a minute on the inside?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd love to hear what your.
Because I can keep talking about this.
Yeah.
But,
What is the?
Mark's
innovation?
gosh, she's not going to shut
this
up.
is great.
So
I'm learning a
you're
lot.
learning or not learning? You told me you're going to banter. I'm waiting for this.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
You didn't?
Yeah.
Nice guy.
I'll just make fun of you after. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
All
good.
right.
I like your pink shirt.
Thank you.
So from the inside, what we're trying to do as a government, and I think this is harder, it's really hard to transform on the inside. It's really easy to say, you go do it.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to do it yourself, right? So the mirror image is, the government of Canada is the largest employer and buyer. So what are we going to do? When I first took my role 2 years ago, I had the privilege of joining a department that was called Innovation. But this department didn't even have Wi-Fi across the building. So, I can say that now and not be embarrassed. But, we are trying to create the workforce of the future as well. So if our own department is not creating a workforce that can work in a mobile way, untethered, leveraging any app they need, any piece of information, not able to collaborate, then what are we doing? So we brought in the fundamentals, right? We brought in tablets and mobile devices, created open workspaces. We're still working on that. So we have to do this too. And if we do that, that attracts talent.
Yeah.
So when we talk about talent, there's no way I can attract talent if I'm like trying to bring in people and say, join the Cube Farm. Right, go sit in that corner over there. And by the way, you can't leave your desk and work. So, there's your big, massive, server sitting on your desk, and that's how you're going to work. We have to embody innovation ourselves.
Yeah.
And like, we're not even half as far as we need to be. But then skills too, right? Building teams that understand how to configure third-party technologies that are customizing everything and building it from scratch. How do you leverage cloud? Like Dan and I are working on all those problems as well. That's actually what will attract talent.
Yeah.
You attract talent by doing,
Yeah.
not by imagining. You attract talent by actually saying, we're going to do these 3 really cool things, and they're really exciting projects, and all of a sudden people want to be part of that team.
And then get them done, right?
And then actually enable them as a leader.
That's the part we often forget about.
I know. Can I talk about
see
something
where
that we
you're going
got
with
done?
that.
So on Monday, we got something done.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're egging me on.
Yeah.
But on Monday, Canada built its first really cool app. It's an app, but it's good. We have to get into the game. That actually helps businesses grow. So it's called Canada Business. You could download it right now. You guys should get on your phones. Do this right now. Canada Business. And it actually is one of the first services we put on a mobile solution or a mobile smartphone experience where you can get access funding and capital and services and payroll and taxes and things that you would never know. We will notify you if you are a very specific segment of the population, female entrepreneurs, get online. Like, it's really exciting. And the feedback in 3 days or less has been, oh my God, is this a government app? Yes, it is.
That's great. That's great. Well, so I think you guys are simpatico, right? Because I mean, Mark, when you were at U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, did I get it right?
You got it.
That's a mouthful.
Nobody ever gets the name right.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
I mean, you were really kind of a trailblazer and somebody who I think very similar to Anita sort of asked why not about a lot of things and came in and kind of, you know, just said, well, let's do this differently, right? Let's do this the way that other people might do it.
Right.
What role did you feel that the talent had in terms of either being a barrier or an enabler to getting that done, to
good question.
making those changes?
And I just needed to add to your comments there. Very often when I meet with customers now, especially in the commercial sector, they want to know how to grow their businesses. And now I'm excited, I can say there's an app for that.
There is.
I like it.
There you go.
That's going to be so useful
Thank
to our
you.
AWS customers.
Yeah.
So yes, I was the CIO at U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Trips right off of my tongue. I don't know why other people have trouble with it. When we started our digital transformation, I think we did what a lot of big organizations do, which was to step back and say, do we have the skills? And do we have the right culture for doing this? We have, you know, sort of fixed workforce, relatively speaking. We're not going to be able to hire a lot of new people in. Do we have the skills? And as I meet with customers in both commercial and public sector, I find that that's what they want to talk about all the time, right? This is the big concern. I meet with about 120 customers a year. My colleagues on my team, there are 10 of them, each meets with about the same number, and this is the thing that comes up every time. And I think what I learned by going through the process once before is that, of course, you don't have the skills. It's a given, right? If you're going to do a big transformation, you're going to change in a big way. Well, the people you have are the people you needed to do things the way you've been doing them, right? So by definition, you never have the people that you want when you're doing a big transformation, or the skills, at least, that you need. And you never have the culture that you want to have, because the culture has developed around the way you've done things before. So it's a necessary part of transforming that you get scared at first and say, you know, we're not there. But what I like to tell customers is that it's not that having the right skills and the right culture is a prerequisite for transforming. Those are things that you actually develop in the transformational process. As you're changing, you're developing new skills, the culture is reorganizing itself around success as it's now defined. I think of cultural change and skills as being an output of the process of moving into the digital world. So
That's
really,
a good way to explain it.
yeah, I think so. And
Yeah, it's organic.
the other thing is, people who are already in the agency have a sense of mission. You know, they're passionate about what they do, and they love to succeed in accomplishing the mission of the agency. And that's a huge advantage over just going out and trying to bring in people who happen to have a set of technical skills. You know, if I have the choice, I'd rather start with the people who have the mission and are passionate and add the new technical skills, especially with technologists who are usually good at learning things. Another big factor for us was that we'd outsourced all the technical skills, right? So we used contractors for almost everything technical, and we found that the feds, the govies, didn't always have the technical skills to be able to manage the programs that they were overseeing. And even the contractors didn't have good access to the right skills, right? When I all of a sudden one day said, we want to do DevOps and microservices and yada yada, you know, they were like, what do we do now, right? Let's promise that we have those people and then see what happens, right? So we had to overcome that also and get the right skill set to be available for us.
Well, and you know, something that when you've spoken about sort of going through the transformation at USCIS, I think one thing that struck me was that once you started to dig in with the people you had on staff, you realized that they actually were a lot more talented and had better ideas than it appeared at the beginning, right? Because they were sort of, overwhelmed with the complexity and the process and sort of a culture of no, right?
Yes.
And so they just stopped giving their ideas to people, right? And so I'm wondering, you know, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that, and then maybe Anita, you could share if you found the same.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think you've heard me tell the story of the big project that we had going. I don't know if there's anybody from USCIS out there, but we had a big famous failing project, essentially. We had managed to
You
spend...
only had one? I've got like several.
No, we had one that was the star
Oh,
of
the
failing
star.
projects.
Okay.
We were really good at
grand
failing badly,
champion.
it turned out. So we had a contractor, and we gave them about $1 billion to build a piece of software, and then we got rid of them without actually getting anything for our $1 billion, essentially. And it was a troubled program for a lot of reasons. And at some point towards the end of my time at USCIS, they handed the project to me, and before it had been outside of the IT organization, and they said, okay, Mark, you're responsible now. It happened that was at about the time that the new administration came in looking for somebody to blame. So I got the hot potato just in time. And one of the first things I did was to sit down with some of the leaders of the project, some of the people who are most involved, and say, what do you think we should be doing differently here? Because obviously it's not working. And to my complete surprise, they sat down with me and told me what we should be doing differently. You know, one person said, you know, we're really just automating a paper process, and it would work a lot better if we rethought the process now that it's electronic, and here's the way we should be doing it. And somebody else said, you know, I feel like we're not talking to the users, and what they're really saying they need is this and that, and instead we're doing this other thing. And, you know, here's the way that I would see rethinking it. And so, of course, I asked them the obvious question, which is like, you've been running this project, why haven't you done those things? Because those are all great ideas. And I think they didn't want to offend me, so they spoke very carefully, but essentially said, do you realize how hard it is for us to get any new ideas adopted? You know, we have to go through all these gates, and so many people have to sign off on any new idea, and everybody has veto power, and by the way, you're one of those people. And, you know, I think that they were right, and the lesson that I took away from it is you don't have to find ways to get people to be more innovative. They already are innovative, right? Having the idea is not the problem. The problem is that you have to create a way for their ideas to actually get tested out, you know, and tried, and to let them enter the sort of mainstream of the process, which is something we can do a lot better now with the cloud and DevOps and so on, where we can try quick experiments instead of, you know, when an employee tells me an idea that's obviously stupid because I'm much wiser and I know everything, instead of saying, you know, that'll never work, which I think is the temptation of a lot of managers, I could say, well, let's devise an experiment together to see if your idea will work, and let's agree on what would tell us it was a good idea or not, and then go from there. Is that kind of what you found?
That's brilliant. No, but that I think is, you're just talking culture, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a culture of we value your ideas rather than we're going to regard you with suspicion when you have an idea.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Well,
sure.
and I think some of that also helps to get past some of the fear and doubt that that a lot of folks, and not just in government, but in lots of organizations have about, well, you know, I'm not just out of college. I'm not, you know, I'm not a coder. I'm not whatever it is, right? I'm not this. I'm not that, and so I can't be that, right? And so I think when you then give them the, oh, well, I'm valuing your idea, and actually here's a way for you to learn the skills that would be useful. Here's maybe somebody to help you learn, or a mentor or whatever, right? That helps to break through that sort of hesitation.
Yeah.
I'm interested if,
By the way, one of the skills that I want them to learn is the skill of figuring out small experiments they can do that will test out ideas,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? So in the process of testing their idea, they're actually building another new skill that I really want them to have.
Yeah, yeah. I'm interested if you have any, like, one or two things that you have tried that you think could help sort of shake up or, you know, break through to help get started on this, like, building new skills among the existing workforce. Anita, if you have
I kind of wanted to go a
Yeah, go
little
ahead.
bit there
Go
for
ahead,
sure,
sure.
and also where Mark was going around, finding the right people inside your
Yeah.
organization and then augmenting with whatever
Right.
Yeah.
additional skills you need. And I think that one of the things that as governments we need to learn to do is not dictate what we need. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of it, right? That's back to these large programs and transformations fail because we don't know what we need to do, but yet we're going to tell our partner exactly what we want them to do. Well, like that's a recipe for disaster right
Yeah.
there. But that procurement and that partnership
Yeah.
has to change. But I'm also going to say that the private sector also has to not accept that. So it's a two-way relationship, right? So if we tell you something really stupid to do, you shouldn't do it, right? And so whether it's $1 million or $1 billion, the answer should actually be to educate us to be smarter about how we buy from you and how we partner with you. And I actually, often speak that language now, right? As someone who has opportunities to make our workforce better. But then also, the other thing I expect from my private sector partners is to educate us during that journey. So if I spend $1 million on something that I need you to help us do, make sure it sounds good, it's a better partnership, but also teach my workforce, right? Because part of it should be that, right? In the old days, they used to call that on-the-job training or, I can't remember the term, but transferring of skills. But, it's the work integrated learning. It doesn't have to be formal. It can be informal. So we learn along the way. We become better. So, when I used to be in the private sector, which is most of my career, what I was taught was make your client better when you leave them. Make them better
Yeah.
at what they do. So I ask for that as well. So I think that's really important. What was your question? I'm like,
I was
went off
asking
on a
if you-
tangent.
No, if you had any, like, one or two things that a government agency or an enterprise of any
Yeah.
kind could do to start transforming those
Yes.
skills and to
that's
motivate and start-
okay,
yeah.
great. I already
Yeah.
answered part of that. Then there we
Yeah.
go. Good job. Good job. The other thing that I think we have also really started to do is actually run projects. Let's just call them projects in a way that is completely up to the team. So we have a few like that now. We also, inside our business cases, are not like, we're going to do exactly this, and this is exactly how, and I need 2 of these and 3 of those. What we've said is, okay, you guys, work in the open, collaborate, figure out what you want, and then we will just get involved, we as leaders, when things are coming off the rail versus micromanaging those projects to death. Right? But our governance has changed. So what we've done internally is we've in some of our digital projects that are trying to transform how we work, we've changed governance, and it hasn't been easy. We've almost like done it sideways and in a way that is almost under the radar. You know what I mean, right, Dan? So it's not quite obvious. We've found ways to govern differently that hasn't changed the formal process, but we've sort of check the boxes because it's an experiment, the governance.
Yeah.
So we've put together a digital committee in my department that we lead that allows for technology adoption in an experimented way, allows us to, work in the open, in collaborative spaces, test a few things out, design differently. But, the funny part is we don't have those standards yet. We don't have that governance formally yet. But by us doing it just under the radar, but yet still making sure we don't break rules on security and privacy and the things that I absolutely have to make sure I don't break, we can make progress. And then we've taken that example, and our mobile app is a great one. You should see what it took for us to get that out the door. It's unbelievable. In less than a year, right? In government, that's a miracle. And then, it is. And then what we're now going to do is we're going to take that and make that the model, and then push on process and governance and say, it's possible, do it like this. And we now need to do that in scale.
Yeah.
So that's some of the ways. And what it's done for talent is people are really excited.
Yeah.
And so the ideas have come from the team.
Yeah.
They haven't been pre-written,
Yeah.
right?
That's really interesting, the parallels between the way that we did things. A couple of the things you just said are almost exactly our playbook.
I copied you, I forgot to tell you.
And I realized as you were talking that I should return the favor of your mobile app by creating a mobile app for miracles. Whenever you need a miracle,
Oh,
you
that's nice.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. I like that.
So we also found a way to change our governance model, and this was maybe the hardest thing that we did, where the teams were given, instead of being told do this, do that, we gave them a high level objective, a business objective, and we said do it however you can,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So we want to increase the number of cases per day that status verifiers can process. Go to it, right? And you figure out the best way to do it and the best way to have a big impact, and I'm here to help you as you do that. Let me know if there's a blocker somewhere in the government. Of course, there's always a blocker everywhere. I'll help you remove that blocker. So that's the way that we handled it. Similar playbook, and we also found that especially with technical skills, you almost always learn them on the job. You know, you can go and sit in a class and you'll get something out of it. But generally, the best way to transfer skills across the organization, especially if you manage to put together a small group that has all the right skills, and then you want to scale it out across the rest of the organization, the best way to do it is to find some sort of partnering model where the people with the skills can partner with the people who don't have the skills. And so some companies do a dojo sort of model where they have the dojo that's expert on everything, and teams rotate into the dojo, work with the dojo team, and then rotate out, and another team comes in. That's one model we've seen. We've seen another one where if you've got a good team of, let's say, 8 people, you split it into 2 teams of 4 people, and then you have 4 less experienced people join each of those teams.
So
and then once they're good,
yeah.
then you split those teams. It's the mitosis model. And then my favorite is called promiscuous pairing. And the idea of promiscuous pairing is you just
You got to tweet this one. It sounds really
yeah, this is special for Canada. I would like to see you guys adopt this also. The way it works is you try to get 2 developers to pair program together, let's say, or any other people to pair. But the trick is you change partners very frequently. And that's the promiscuous part. And if you do that, then new ideas spread really fast across the organization. Virally, you might say. Yeah. So
I'm not going to touch that comment.
I didn't
Let's
think
just
you'd
like
want to.
scratch that from the record.
I knew this was a good way to have the last word on this.
I'm done.
You don't even get to have the last word on that. So we're going to turn this to a different
I
topic.
know, yeah, exactly. You need to change the brand. For that
Yeah.
I didn't invent it, unfortunately. It's out there already. It's already out.
Sounds like a developer might have come up with that.
Exactly.
It turns out, yeah.
Yes. So I know in the paper that we worked on, one of the findings that came out was that that women continue to be underrepresented in digital careers, and we certainly have found that at AWS. It's one of the things that we've looked at is we have a program called We Power Tech, which is about various underrepresented populations in technology, and because we've been thinking about, well, you know, if there are not enough people with the digital skills for the future, we certainly are not going to solve that by continuing to focus on a sliver of the population, right? And let's try to make sure that every talented person, whatever community they come from, or whatever their gender or race or background is, that they have the opportunity to enter into a digital career. So I'm wondering if you guys can talk a little bit about what the government of Canada is thinking about in terms of this, what you saw either in the government or in the enterprises you've been working with, and any thoughts that you have on, what we need to do better to help improve that situation.
Or do you want me to go first so you can have the last word on this one?
You first.
You just have to promise to
Mark.
be
You
outrageous
first.
with your last word.
Okay, I promise.
So I published a blog post last week on this subject, and it's something I feel strongly about. I think there are a couple of different ways to look at it. The first is just logically along the lines that we've been talking about. If it's hard to find digital skills out there, then you've got to make sure you're looking everywhere those skills are. You can't limit your audience. So it's important to cast a wide net, so to speak, and it's important to make sure the culture is welcoming and inclusive in the company so people want to work there, a diverse set of people want to work there. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, the digital world is about innovation. You know, it's about big innovations, small innovations. It's about continuous innovation. And it's innovation created by small teams, and the teams are generally meant to have diverse skill sets and diverse points of view. And it's been shown very clearly that if you have a diverse team, you wind up with more innovation. You get more than the sum of the parts, essentially, with a diverse team. You get a lot of interaction and improving on each other's ideas. So if you're looking to drive innovation, diversity, I think, is a very important factor. And I always implicitly include inclusiveness there. I mean, the team is, you don't get the benefit unless everybody participates and is encouraged to participate. And then I think the third thing goes back to what you said about not having a cubicle farm if you want to attract the kinds of people who thrive in the digital world. I think most of the workforce that's at least those that are at an early stage in their careers, they are assuming a diverse workplace. You know, that's what they're looking for, and they're not going to feel comfortable working for you unless you have that kind of diversity. And fortunately, I think the government is really good in general at it, and I learned a lot from my government experience around diversity. Now the outrageous part. Thank you.
Well, here's my outrageous sentence. Hire them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really, you know, it's outrageous. But, and I was like, well, you can't, you're going to hire them because they're women, or you're going to hire them because they're, you know, diverse. I'm like, yeah, you are. Just do it. Because I think that's part of it, right? Is if you don't hire people that are different, then you're not going to get leadership by example either, right? Because not everyone's going to break that glass ceiling very easily. Some people can for different reasons, some people cannot. I'm a mother of 3 kids. I couldn't always do a certain time of day of working. Sometimes I'd have to head out real fast. By the time you have 3 kids, both parents have to head out really fast. It's not like I'm the mother and I'm gonna go pick up all my kids from school or daycare. My husband had to do it too, right? So, you know, when I think about my experience weaving in and out of the workforce, you know, there was some luck involved, but there was a ton of courage and a ton of hard work. But it wasn't just mine. My husband played a really, really big role in that, right? And frankly, it took all of us. It took you know, my parents and my friends and my family. You know what women do, and I don't do this anymore, so I have transformed how I do things, is, you know, we take it all on, but I don't. Like, I don't care about my house being clean. I don't care about certain things, but I do care about my kids' education, and I care about their health, and I care about how they see the world. I have 2 boys, and my youngest is a girl. I care about how she perceives me. I care about how my sons perceive me. You know, they don't always like it, but, you know, the culture in the home actually drives how women feel about themselves and how about men feel about themselves. And, like, there's just so much to be done here, right? And I know we keep talking about it, but we don't do enough. So just do it. Just go hire that woman. Just because her resume doesn't look so good, so what? Hire it. Dad and I were just talking about that today. He's in the middle of looking at his workforce differently, and we're talking about gender neutrality and different kinds of people. And, you know, just because, you know, I'm a woman and I didn't have to say anything like, make sure you have a diverse workforce. He's like, Anita, crap, I better have a diverse workforce. And I asked him why. He goes, because I need a difference of opinion. So, you know, saving a seat for people who are different is important. You know, in another country, let's pretend we're in Singapore, right? Let's say in Singapore, you know, all the locals want diversity on their table. So they should go hire people that are of a different background, right? So go and hire people from Canada or people from Africa or whatever, you know, from different generations, so they can have a diverse workforce. It's not just about the white guy. I think that's a ridiculous sentence. It's about where you come from and what diversity looks like for you on that table.
Yeah.
That's the conversation.
Well, and that's
right?
part of why we like to talk about underrepresentation.
Yeah, it's about
right?
based on where you live and work. Underrepresentation actually is a better word than, you know, men, women, invisible minority. That's not the conversation. But the conversation should be, then do it. Just go hire them, and don't like, the the rules of the road are different. Like the variable of the equation of the right background, experience, resume, academics is not the conversation anymore. You should be looking for different variables in that equation.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I also think it's really important that leaders encourage those underrepresented technologists to get out there and talk about their work too, earlier than they might have otherwise. Like to say, you know, if you have somebody super talented on your team who's doing interesting work, I think it's important to encourage those people to get out and talk about what they're doing, because you know, we know that it's like by middle school that you know girls, but also, you know, people from a lower socioeconomic class, people from a different race, they think, oh, like I can't, that's not me. Those are not my people. But it's not just that, it's also about, you know, what we consider to be our culture and work. So in government, it's like, you gotta be on site. You gotta come in at 8:30. You gotta work until this time. Well, how about if you can't? How about you absolutely cannot? You cannot be on site. You need you need the flexibility. But it's not just women, everyone, right? So if we start to change ourselves as employers and what we consider to be, like, why am I micromanaging my team? These are adults, like, I trust you. You got to change the culture, you know, the flexibility. It's really important in how we create that environment. Because if you create the right environment, you are going to get talent. Like, you know, you don't, like, it's really important that we first make the first move. And then when we make the first move, you will get a really amazing team. And it's interesting you say that, because I think about one of my mentors who actually helped encourage me to be okay with being a parent and ambitious at work, you know, and like, because, and it was a dad who prioritized, he was a president of business unit, and he prioritized going and coaching his son's baseball team a couple of days a week. He's like, I'm gonna leave at 3:15. I'm going to coach my kids' baseball team. I work a lot. I'm here as much as I need to be, but this is important to me, and so I'm going to do this for this season. And I was like, oh, I know. Oh, okay, cool, right? No, but it really matters. I'll give you like a personal example at work, right? So I've got like a pretty cool job, all that kind of stuff, but I'm still working for somebody. I'm still accountable to a leader. And every Monday morning when I first had my job, my deputy, who I report to, had his operations meetings around 9 o'clock in the morning. You know, 9 o'clock in the morning it's not 8 o'clock in the morning, but it doesn't work for me, because I drop off my youngest to school, and her school starts at 8:30, and my drive to work is 40 minutes. So I don't get to work before about 10 after 9 or 15 after 9, and in the winter in Ottawa, maybe 10 o'clock in the morning, God knows. I don't even know what happens, right? But I have Bluetooth in my car, and I start my day as soon as I drop her off. Because I can, and you know, a lot of my leaders get phone calls around 8:35 in the morning, because Anita's off, right? But I was like, you know, I was like, he's going to change his entire ops meeting because of one leader. I'm not going to say anything. And sometimes I'd come in late, sometimes I wouldn't show up. I'd send somebody else. And after a while, it got noticed. Like, why doesn't Anita come to ops at 9 in the morning? And then I finally got a message from him, and he's like, hey, what's going on? Like, don't you like my management meetings? You know, and I finally said, finally had the courage, after he nudged me. He had to nudge me. I was like a little bit embarrassed. And I said, I'm not there at 9 in the morning. I know it's 9 in the morning, but I'm not there. I'm there around 9:15. And he changed his ops meetings 9:30 every Monday morning. He did it for me. So, you know, the leader has to sometimes make the first move. And that mattered, but he noticed and he cared. And like, you know, at the end of the day, that's what I mean. Employers and leaders have to make the first move to open up the space for even those little things that are noticeable. You know, and I was really happy.
One small incremental point on something you said, that ability to let people telework, work remotely, opens up, I think, a lot of possibilities for accommodations for people with disabilities as well.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Quite widens.
Absolutely. Yeah,
for sure. Do we have any questions out here in the audience?
Before the, you know, 5
Before
o'clock
you go through the
bell
looking
for
glass.
free beer? Anyone?
All right, well then, any final thoughts from you guys about, you know, any advice to the audience about what to go do to get moving on building digital skills in their organizations?
Do it.
Just do it.
Do it.
Okay, just do it.
It's
Oh,
fun. It's
I
fun.
have one. How about I think that the cloud practitioner certification
Yep.
is actually a really, really good first step for a lot of people who are scared of becoming technologists, for people who have potentially the aptitude to do it, but haven't really gotten their feet wet, because it starts at absolute basics and then moves them through to where they really have a pretty solid knowledge
That's
of
cool.
what cloud computing is, and
Wow.
could move on to other things from there. But it really kind of builds confidence, and there are like free programs that you can do and all of that. So
Yeah, and that
you
helps
feel
get
it?
over that fear that's there at the beginning.
Yeah.
It seems like there's so much to learn about the cloud. And actually, I mean, it's there because it's quite simple in general, right,
Yeah.
the cloud. And so it's easy to get over the fear factor by just getting that basic level of training and seeing that it's not such a big, complicated new world.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
good. All right, thank you very much. Thanks. I hope you all join us for our Alice in Wonderland party in the keynote hall.